Welcome to Shoot the Ones, a weekly MMA podcast. Your two favorite Ukrainians. I'm Genya.
And I am Dema. We're your hosts with the most, and we got an exciting show for you guys this week. We're going to mainly discuss the results of UFC Fight Night 108, and we have a lot of fight announcements, as well as few worthy news that we're going to talk about this week. So let's get right into it without any further ado. UFC Fight Night 108 was a really solid card. What do you think? Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, Dima, I was actually really impressed with the card. I didn't have high expectations coming in, but it was a really sad. It overwhelmed, I guess. It lived a little bit past its expectations for me. Lived past its expectations for me. But yeah, it lived up to expectations for me, is what I mean.
Some of it was even better than I expected. Like, there was a lot of finishes, especially. There was a couple of crazy fights that happened on the UFC Fight Pass. The Hector Sandoval knockout in the very first round, that was crazy.
Yeah, you don't see knockout with short punches very often. They were only like 3-inch punches. I guess they're almost what some refer to as baby punches.
Yeah.
And you don't typically see a guy get knocked out, but in hindsight, I think Sandoval kind of I think what happened was Schnell had him in a choke, and Sandoval slammed him out of the choke, and I think that had him a little woozy. So
yeah, that rocked him.
The baby punches weren't really the knockout punches. I think it was the slam, but it looked bad for Schnell. Yeah,
but that's what finished the job, and Matt Schnell was on the receiving end of that. Also, Barberena made a welterweight debut.
Yeah, man, their finishes from top to bottom. This was a really cool card, man. Barberena was not the one making the debut. Joe Proctor was.
Oh, okay.
And
gotcha.
Did you get to see this? I know you were at a wedding, so you might have not seen every single one. But did you see this one, Dima?
I did not see this one.
This was. Like, you'll never see a guy losing in kind of stupider fashion. So they're fighting D, and, they're both landing here and there. Brian's definitely landing more. And then they both start doing the Nate Diaz, what, And they're doing it for a while, like almost a minute of what's.
Just taunting each other.
Yeah, and then until Brian Barberena kind of sneaks up after he, Proctor could have just hit him in the face, but he does another what. And Barberena catches him with a sneaky punch, while he's doing it.
In the middle of a taunt.
Yeah, in the middle of a taunt. Man. And it was just the stupidest way you could lose, but it was a little bit funny to watch.
That's like that silly energy drink commercial where the guy was taunting and got knocked out.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a finish you'd want to look up and see because it's just funny the way it goes down.
Speaking of funny, there was a bit of a comical striking display in the next one.
Oh, no.
How's that for a segue?
Yeah.
Alexis Davis versus Cindy Dunois. Am I pronouncing her last name correct?
Let me read it again. I think you're close. Yeah, Cindy Dunois. I think that. Anyway, she's a teacher, a high school teacher,
and a judo girl. Yeah, a grappling.
And she's got a win over Megan Anderson. She did lose. She's got a loss to Evinger, but golly, was her striking laughable.
Yeah, obviously she's not very well versed or experienced in that, and it showed.
Yeah, and to be fair, me and Dema, we never rag on fighters. We always show people that get in the cage the utmost respect, and we've been pretty consistent with that. But also being fair analysts of the sport, was that not the worst striking you've seen in the UFC octagon?
No, it wasn't competitive, and I don't think Cindy was able to land much at all.
No, it was all arm punches. She did have a little bit of success with the forced takedowns.
Yeah, which is her forte, as one would expect.
It was not an appealing fight unless you're just looking at it to find some humor out of the striking of Cindy, in my eyes. I would not rewatch this fight. I don't know how much money you'd have to pay me to rewatch this one.
Maybe For the sake of entertainment one day.
Same with the next fight. It didn't bring the excitement that I expected. Danielle Taylor got a win. I thought a well-deserved win over Jessica Penne. And it kind of went down like we predicted here, didn't it, Dima? Speaking of predictions, I went 10 out of 13 on the last card. So I feel pretty good about the way I bet this card.
Yeah, you did it solid. You got one more right than I did.
Yeah?
I'm on 9 and 13, I believe.
We both had a good week, man.
It's solid. I mean, I made a couple of stupid ones there,
70%.
but whatever.
Something to feel good about, man.
I took some risks. I feel like I shouldn't have. But
I was surely in the positive. So if I'm in the positive, I feel good about it.
hey, right on. So yeah, Danielle Taylor just outworked Jessica Pena, in my opinion. She was quicker, and despite her disadvantage in the striking, she was able to close the distance really well and land.
I kind of disagree with you about outworked. I think Pena actually threw more punches. I think Danielle Taylor just didn't get hit much. She bounced around and moved left to right movement, and like her punches seemed more effective than the two. And it was a real close one to score, but I think that's what did the difference for the judges was Danielle was landing a little bit harder punches, and being the shortest girl in that division, she's gonna struggle getting in there against girls, and this just kind of showed it against Penne. And bad spot for Jessica, three losses in a row. Good competition. Andrade, the champion, Jurek, and now Danielle Taylor, who's not that bad, who's got really good boxing.
Yeah, but I felt like this was Jessica's fight to win, and she just, I guess, didn't press gas.
Yeah, it was a close line, but I see what you're saying. This was her fight to get back on track.
Yeah, essentially.
And she's 3 in a low row, and she's back to the drawing board, essentially.
Yeah. This next one, hot sauce, Scott Holtzman with a win over Michael McBride via unanimous decision.
I like that fight, man. Scott Holtzman really brought it to Michael McBride, man. He showed a full array of skills. He was able to beat him up standing. And Michael McBride's like a real funky, weird type fighter. And he tries some like weird ankle lock submissions, and Scott was even getting the better of him on the ground, landing like really hard shots. And to Michael McBride's credit, kind of like what we're going to talk about later in the main event, he's got a chin on him. He took a lot of shots and went all the way to a 30-27 and 2 30-27s and 1 30-26.
Yeah, tough guy in Michael McBride. He was able to take everything Holtzman threw at him. But ultimately, Holtzman was able to show that he's better in kind of every aspect, just a little bit better than his opponent here. And I did not see this fight, so I'm just going off of kind of like the Sherdog summary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's one of Ricky's guys, actually. He's trained with him a couple times.
Holtzman?
Yeah.
Speaking of Ricky, the sniper?
Yes.
The sniper, Ricky Rainey. We are working to get Ricky.
He agreed, so we're not working. We're just going to try to make it happen.
Yeah, essentially. But I want to say working because we got to figure out, I guess we'll set up Skype to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to have a first call-in guest in our show, and it's actually going to be like a legit MMA fighter.
Coming off a win against Gilbert Smith, too. But Scott Hot Sauce, I got to see him when Ricky was fighting. I think it was like his 6th or 7th amateur fight at it was his 4th professional fight for the XFC. I don't know if you remember that organization, but Scott Hot Sauce was there, man, and he had guys dressed up as the hot sauce bottles. The guy's actually a really interesting guy. That's what I was getting at. I don't understand why they're not pushing him a little bit more, and he's got a good personality. Like, he does good interviews, he's a handsome fella, a guy that you'd think that they'd be pushing more, but
I think he's on his way. I think sometimes UFC's slow to pick up on, who's able to make the waves. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and speaking of making waves, how about Brandon Moreno?
Brandon Moreno with a fantastic performance over Dustin Ortiz. Man, I was happy that I called Moreno here.
Yeah, and I went with Dustin. This was one of the ones I missed. And it looked in the first round like Dustin was on the way to victory, but to Brandon's credit, man, he kept a cool head. He came out a different fighter, and like he said in the interview after this fight, Plan A didn't work in the first round, so he had to switch it to Plan B, and he had a heck of a Plan B.
Yeah, it's really able to show his adaptability, and that won him the fight. One thing wasn't working, and he makes the switch going from first to second round. Ultimately ends the high kick in the end and closes the deal. He had Dustin in a lot of trouble there after the kick, and he finished the show. It's a great fight. Good upset. Happy to see Brandon Moreno come out on top and win. This next fight, also interesting. We saw Thales Ladies.
Hold on, I want to add something about Brandon Moreno. I just want to see who he lost to on Tough. I don't need it.
He lost to Alexandra Pantoja.
Yeah, Pantoja. Okay. Dema, since he lost on Tough, he was the 16th pick on Tough, and he lost to Pantoja, which was probably the fight of the season that Tough season. It was a heck of a fight. He's been on a roll, man. He's beat Smolka, Benoit, and Ortiz. Big things from this guy in the future.
Yeah, I think the Tough format isn't sometimes the most honest representation of a fighter. I think they have to fight, so many times in a short format, and it's different than you would, taking 3-4 month fight camp sometimes leading up to a fight. So it's not accurate representation, I don't think, and there's been a lot of instances where people would come out of Tough, not performed so well on the show, that came out and did so much better in the UFC.
Good point. And the thing you see from guys on this show is they go on there and this is their first experience to elite level training. So they're growing at a very vast pace. And you've seen that from a lot of guys. Even the guy that beat him, Pantoja, you can see the growth in his last fight from that season of Tough, man. Some of those guys on that season are going to be pretty dangerous fighters. I remember Eric Shelton, too. He's a guy to look forward to. There's a lot of good fighters that came out of that season. But good for Brandon, man. Good win. Let's move on.
Yeah, man. So Thales Ladies and Sam Alvey. What'd you think about that fight?
I can't. We called the victory. It didn't go exactly as we predicted. I thought it would be a grappling affair. It wasn't.
Yeah, I thought so too. They just decided to stand up and see how that goes, huh?
Alvey's a little bit difficult. I mean, I guess he's an old Team Quest guy. I didn't give Alvey the respect that he probably deserved. But Thales had a good strategy. He came out, he kicked him in the leg right away, and he hurt his ankle. And Alvey's movement was never the same. And Thales Leites played kind of a not so crowd pleasing, avoiding strategy, like pretty much like the guy versus Jeremy Stevens the other week. What was his name again? See, guys with performances like that, we forget
something.
We forget his names. Yeah, Renato.
I always refer to him by his first name. That's why
Renato.
I don't remember his last.
But that's the thing. Like you forget guys like that perform like that. Thales, you're not gonna forget because he's fought everybody.
I would tend to disagree. I think the Renato's performance over Jeremy Stevens was
very forgettable.
Was masterful. No, it was masterful. He the Spanish sport with the bull where they fucking he matadored him, dude. I mean, as a professional, as a veteran of Stevens' caliber, you can't just keep walking forward and eating punches like that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit with Dodson and Wineland with all the booings. That kind of goes hand in hand with what you just said. But I get your point.
I guess you just a different perspective.
Yeah.
Mayweather fights like that.
But
he avoids a lot and counterpunches.
But Alvey did. He landed his power on Thales a couple times, and it made him uncomfortable. But to Thales' credit, he was able to take the power and win 30-27 on all the scorecards.
Yeah, I don't remember much of this fight.
Yeah, we predicted it would be a clear-cut victory, but just the fact that there was almost no grappling in it was a little bit surprising.
One thing of note is there was some funny banter between referee Big John and Sam Alvey, where Alvey got hit in the nuts. No, he got poked in the eye, and he was like, "Can you see me? Can you see how ugly I am?" He's like, "No, you're a pretty handsome guy, Big John." And he was like, "You must be blind as a bat." He was like, "Big sexy John," and then they let him fight afterwards. I just thought that was pretty funny.
That was a good moment. I like that, especially a guy that I'm not really too thrilled about. It was a good moment for him, but the fight was not a good moment for him.
No,
The
it
fight
wasn't.
and the,
I just thought that one part of it was funny. Just Sam Alvey is a funny character.
his performance was lacking a little bit, but you got to kind of give credit to that first leg kick.
Yeah, he took away his mobility. That was the plan there for ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just kind of coasted for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, and that's how he got that win. You ready to move on to the main card, man? This was a heck of a card. The main card is where it really picked up steam here.
Good googly moogly. And this first fight, boy, that shit delivered. Mike Perry and Jake Ellenberger. Holy shit.
Yeah, and kind of a theme of this card. Anthony Johnson tweeted after this event. He said something about the guys that have been in there a lot, like Diego Sanchez, Ellenberger, Loazon, even to an extent, that kind of got beat up in a brutal way. That they might need to start rethinking things. And this was rough for Ellenberger, man. This was one of the hardest KOs I can remember. I'm sure there was a handful that were better, and harder, but I'm just saying Ellenberger was stiff for a long time. I think they had to stretcher him out.
Oh, here's the thing. He did not look bad during the fight, okay?
No,
he was actually winning it.
He was winning the fight.
He landed a lot of good shots on Perry, who's, not the most technical guy in the planet. But, yeah, Mike Perry just, after Jake Ellenberger bloodied his nose up with an uppercut, he hit him with a short uppercut, Perry just saw blood and got pissed.
Yeah,
He just reverted. He threw all the technique out a window and just went forward. Hit him with like a vicious left hook, and then they both kind of did like a little scramble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then both got up in the clinch, and within clinch distance, they were both going for the same thing, that elbow, and Perry just landed it harder and quicker. Oh shit!
Yeah, Perry was kind of reading Ellenberger with the clinch strikes, and he had been in that position like 3 or 4 times before he landed that elbow. So he did kind of read him and time it perfectly. I agree with that.
Beat him to the elbow.
Yeah,
should I say?
Exactly, and like you said, Jake looked really good. He had better head movement. He was landing the punches, but man, that was a heck of a. I know I just said it once, but man, that was a heck of a knockout.
I'll say it again with you. That was a heck of a knockout.
Yeah. What I didn't like though is like Ellenberger's laying there like damn near dead, and Mike Perry just starts breakdancing. I know that's his style, and like okay, you're breakdancing right next to a dead guy, or excuse me, a near dead guy. And then you get up and you talk about Jesus Christ and Christ the Lord, your Savior.
And contacting them with the platinum satellites.
I mean, he sounds like somebody that sniffs gas like consistently.
Oh, okay. I mean, he's not the smartest guy, and a lot of guys who are in the game of fighting aren't the most intelligent. But our Boue knows how to fight.
You got to respect this fight, and that's what I was going to say next. I agree with you with that. You got to at least respect this game. He called out some names. I don't think any of them made sense.
He called out Jaban's last opponent?
The guy that beat him. He called out Gunnar Nelson.
Gunnar Nelson.
Yeah. So he loses to Jabuan, and he calls out the guy that just annihilated Jabuan. Because that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, does a lot of things Mike Perry do make sense?
No, this is a guy that dresses in blackface and posts on Facebook.
eyebrow tats, whatever. I'm not judging the guy. He's fucking hella entertaining to me.
I like to watch him in the ring. I'm not too entertained with him outside.
I'm pretty entertained by the outside shtick too. I'm not gonna lie.
You like it? I'm not a fan of it, man. I like that he's unique. I'll give him that. He's very unique. But he's kind of like the gym douche.
Yeah,
the Cody Garbrandt type.
I guess I find him entertaining in like world star kind of way.
Yeah, he's like the wigger Cody Garbrandt.
Yo, you've been fucking cracking me up for the last 5 minutes. You're on fire, bro.
That one just kind of popped to me, but he kind of is, man. Cody Garbrandt is also kind of a little bit gym douche. I think that's why some people he rubs the wrong way.
Dude, Cody is a nice guy. He brought out that kid who had the disability. He gave him the belt. I mean,
and then
he's
he
putting
chokes,
on this act, dude.
And then he chokes TJ like right away.
No, he's doing this shit for the.
Speaking of, man, that was a good episode of Tough. Did you get to watch it at all?
Nah, it's they're playing into the whole drama. They're trying to milk it as much as possible. The fight itself wasn't bad.
Yeah, and speaking of Ricky, the guy that Ricky beat in his last fight won the first fight on the show. He beat the number one pick for Cody Garbrandt's team, Seth Baczynski. It was Gilbert Smith.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
that was Ricky's last win in Bellator.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool, man. I remember Ricky tweeted out, or I don't know what the fuck they call it, Facebooked out. He's like, "Oh, that's cute, man. The last two guys I beat are roommates on FS1."
Yeah, he should be in there.
Fight politics kind of sucks sometimes, man. You know how that goes. It's more about how you network and who's your brother and stuff like that than how good you really are sometimes.
That's the way of the world sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's what opportunities you ask for and not like what you earn, in this sport at least.
But sometimes don't be afraid to ask.
Well, you kind of have to, man. Like, we're not big on asking for listeners, but we got to. You know, we want to be heard.
Well, I think we should just, get so good at our craft that people will just naturally gravitate to us because we're,
Exactly, but
knowledgeable and, good to listen to.
But you don't create art because you don't want it to be seen,
For sure.
You want it to be seen. But let's get back to fights, man. The next fight was a real back and forth affair between Stevie Ray and Loazon, who might have had a 10-8 first round. It was a real dominant first round for Joe, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, real close fight. It went back and forth a lot. And, a fight that could have potentially been a draw.
Is it raining?
Yeah, it started raining
like
pretty
hard
hard.
as shit, right?
Yeah.
At least we told them.
No, it's all good. Keep it rolling. So if you guys hear some raindrops or whatever.
But
weather situation.
I got a little bit disagree with you, Dema. I thought Loazon clearly took the first round, and it could have even been a 10-8. But Stevie Ray came back strong, man. Loazon didn't look like the same fighter that he used to be. He was really tired in the second round. And from the second round on, it was all Stevie Ray. And the third round arguably could have been a 10-8 for Stevie also. And one of the judges actually gave it that. The judge that scored it 29-27.
I don't know. I might be biased here as a Joe Loazon fan, but I thought he got tired more so in the third round, and the second one was a little bit more competitive. To me, he won the first. The second one could have gone either or because Loazon did good in beginning, and he had a little moment there in the middle.
He grappled a little bit, but he was getting hit hard throughout the round.
But he did get hit, so that could have been. That round could be somewhat disputed.
Yeah.
And then the third one, he lost. So, it was a close fight. It could have been a draw, possibly, if they ruled it a 10-8. But one thing to note, they did not follow the new judging criteria in Nashville. I just remember that. So they wouldn't give out the 10-8s.
They went on the old rules. Well, they're not as lenient with the 10-8s. They can still give it 10-8.
True.
They're just not as lenient with it.
And the whole thing with putting your hands down and things like that did not apply. So,
yeah. And the next one, unless you had anything else to add on that one, but the next fight didn't really live up to the hype that we gave it last week on Shoot the Ones, wouldn't you say?
It wasn't as eventful, but I think ultimately it went
Very technical fight.
it went the way that we kind of saw it would.
I agree with that. Yeah, we both had Dotson. We thought the speed would be the biggest difference, and that's exactly
Which is
what it was.
it
Because Dotson only got hit 13 times by a guy that's masterful at striking.
Yeah, dude was a ping pong ball. I mean, he was just pew, 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 all over the place.
And I'll be a little bit honest, the crowd was a little bit uneducated about MMA and probably solidly drunk by this point. So
It being Nashville, yeah.
they booed the whole from pretty much here on, from the actually no, they like the next fights because they're all fucking good. But you can't boo the next three fights at all. But yeah, from the start, they booed a lot of some of the undercard ones. I think they booed Latis versus Alvey a lot. Jessica Penne Taylor got booed pretty heavy. Davis Dendois got booed. A lot of fights got booed, but the crowd was pretty uneducated and not the most respectful crowd that you'll see. And I don't want to turn any Nashville, Tennessee folks off from Shoot the Ones. It's just my honest opinion on it.
I mean, crowds vary. You have pretty rowdy crowds in America. Not the most educated. In Japan, I mean, they observe the fight like they're in a library with the most utmost respect. Russia is somewhere in between the two, I guess.
Exactly, but to be fair to that crowd, that was probably the least exciting fight of the main event, the main card rather, and it was because both guys fought a very technical, smart strategy where they try to avoid damage and not get hit as much, and that's not what the crowd wanted to see. More rock'em sock'em.
Yeah. Couple things to take away. Eddie Wineland was kind of just hands heavy the whole time. He didn't throw much kicks, and he became predictable for Dotson, and that's how Dotson was able to avoid most of the strikes that Eddie threw. Just something I remember thinking to myself.
Yeah, and Dotson keeps on winning, man. Since he's fought Mighty Mouse, I'm pretty sure he's undefeated. Or no, I think he lost one in there. It was a controversial split decision.
I'll pull it up.
Yeah, he lost one, but it was a really close fight. I think it was against Lineker.
Yep, that was a John Lineker fight.
That was close as shit, man. But he's looked really good in every fight, and it's typically his speed that gives guys a ton of problems.
Yeah, man. It's that division is starting to look pretty good. I mean, you got the kid, Moreno. They just no wait, that's a different division. No wait, they fought one way up.
Dotson's 135. I think Moreno's 135.
Okay, yeah, right. He moved up.
No. Moreno's 125, and Dotson did move up from 125 to 135.
For 1 second, I thought Dotson was the 125.
I mean, it's cool that they're all jumping divisions, but it makes it a little bit harder for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. There's more divisions.
It's like, this week he's in 135.
Than any other time.
Last week he was in 125, Or like Proctor. How the hell are you supposed to know if the announcer doesn't tell you?
And it's easier for lighter guys with the 10 weight difference to jump around more so than it would be for that 15-pound difference at a heavier weight.
But a solid talking point is you're seeing it a lot more, especially lately in MMA.
Yeah.
A lot more, I believe.
I think your Conor paved the way there a little bit.
I don't want to give Conor that credit, man. I think it's been going on a little bit even longer than his UFC career.
Silva did it a few times.
Yeah, but back when they wanted to make GSP Silva, it was very rare.
Yep.
And maybe you're right where you're giving Conor credit, because once the super fights, they started talking about super fights, everybody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So you have a valid point there with Conor. I actually didn't
Conor and Silva.
I didn't think as deep into that, but that's a heck of a point, Dema.
Yeah, he's a pioneer. He made it on like 100 most influential people in the Time magazine. Just something to bring up real quick.
He does know how to talk. I wish he was fighting MMA and not Floyd Mayweather, but that's just my taste.
Who knows? That may or may not happen.
And Gunnar Nelson says if wins, which is 1 in fucking 1 million chance probably. But if he wins, he said he's probably gonna retire from any combat sport, which I thought was
Cash out.
kind of funny. But let's stay on this card though. This was a hometown guy of Vince St. Preux versus Marcus Rogerio de Lima. In the first round, Rogerio de Lima looked real good, Dema. He was coming with some real strong punches. He hurt Vince. Vince stayed calm, went to his corner, and he came out with a real interesting choke.
The Von Flu choke,
Yeah,
they call it.
have you seen something like that before? Like honestly, his head was so weird contorted. I thought OSP was tapping for a second.
Well,
Like,
it's one of those that it doesn't land often.
yeah, well, it was created by it was named after the former UFC guy. He didn't have a ton of success, but he did the choke a lot. Something Von Flu, right?
Yeah, he patented the name.
Yeah, he what is his first name? Something Von Flu.
Off the top of the head,
I don't remember, but he was really good at it. But Vince St. Preux does it a little bit different than him. But it's still a real effective move, and he's landed this submission 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah, it seems like it's one he's taken a liking to, and found a way to develop the setup around it and secure it, because it's not one of those. It's one of those that you don't see very often. So yeah, that was cool. That was cool to see.
Yeah, man, sick choke, and de Lima was a fat.
Yeah, he came in overweight again. And speaking of overweight, they're making him go to heavyweight because of...
Good, man. It was, what, 4 times he missed? 5 times?
Yeah, that's a big boy.
It gets ridiculous at a point. Like, once or twice, you're like, okay, get it together, brother. 5 times? You just don't give a fuck. You're trying to get an advantage at that point. Oh, excuse my language, shoot the ones.
And he looked really big. He looked...
Yeah,
he looked like a heavyweight.
Stan even talked about it. He wanted to get the weight advantage. He felt he needed it versus Vince, and it helped him in the first round. And he thought he was going to use it to knock him out, I believe. But that didn't quite work. Vince had a good chin, and to his credit, he came out ready in the second round. He came out ready to hurt him, and he was hurting him because his gas tank was better and his grappling was way better.
Yeah, sweet choke. So are you ready to move on to the next one? I don't have much more to add.
I don't have anything to add on that one. It was just an impressive performance by St. Preux.
Yeah, man. So in the co-main event of the night, in lightweight bout, Al Iaquinta defeats Diego Sanchez via KO punches.
Poor Diego.
Damn.
Man. What can you say about this one? You've never seen Diego face down like that. He's been hurt with punches, but never like that.
Never knocked out quite like that.
Never like that.
I mean, this guy's been around forever, since first Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, and it was just a hell of a performance by Iaquinta. And this is like 5 wins in a row for him. I think his last one was over Jorge Masvidal, who I have
Who's a beast.
I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, so Al is no joke, man. He's real skilled, and some of his out of the ring antics are quite something.
Sanchez is, nothing to be scoffed at. I mean, I think Iaquinta was the rightful 4-1 favorite here. I mean, we kind of expected him to win, but did anybody expect him to crush Diego like that and put on that kind of performance?
Not that quick and not that dominant. No, I didn't.
I think he proved that he belongs with the top class there, the top group.
For sure, and it's really weird considering I don't think he really wants to continue fighting. Maybe.
I think he does. I think he just wants to be treated like properly. I think he wants, like, if he wants to sit down with his boss, and his management, and like that meeting, he wants that to be able to happen. He wants to get paid what he thinks he's worth, which also begs to ask the question: why did he sign the contract recently? He signed the contract like 5 months ago, and he's already complaining about it, which rubs a couple fans the wrong way. But I get it. I mean, the guy just wants to make what he's worth, and I don't think he's getting that.
I think the issue lies is he makes good points. He makes a lot of good points. His anger isn't unfounded. but he's not the most tactful in his approach. He's not diplomatic at all, and he just goes and puts his employer on blast. And
tell Dana White to shut your mouth.
Go do that shit in corporate America, and your ass is gonna get fired. I mean, it happened to me.
Well, I guess for him, he's got a fallback gig. He's definitely got that real estate. He even plugged himself after the win.
Luckily for me, I got a fallback gig too. I got the Shoot the Once podcast now.
There you go. Yeah, man, making it happen. Hey, me and Dema, we weren't feeling great this week, but we were like, we got to bring y'all one, man. We got to be consistent with this.
Yeah, we're both sick as hell. I mean, I had messed up throat. You had something going on
Cough,
too.
messed up throat, fucking back was sore.
Yeah.
I had a rough week, man.
Tonsils flared up. It was just, but we took a couple days and then pulled through, and we're here to give you the episode, so...
Yeah, that's why the show's coming a little bit later than typical. But let's get back to MMA, what we're good at. Not a whole lot to say here, man. The fight ended super quick by knockout, and we're probably not going to see Iaquinta for a while. And that's sad when you realize how good this guy is.
Yeah, not a lot of people can beat Jorge Masvidal,
that was a close back and forth fight that could have gone either way, but he was
not a lot of people can give Jorge a close fight. I guess is what I was trying to say.
Exactly, and he was right in there with Jorge. Like every time Jorge would hit him, Al would hit him right back. It was a real back and forth fight, kind of like one of those basketball games that go point for point.
Yeah, real skillful guy. I want to see him fight, to be honest. And more of a question for where does this leave Diego?
I hope retirement.
Yeah,
I hope retirement. I mean, you can already tell in his speeches he's becoming a little bit Chuck Liddell-like. He's not like. Do you remember what he was like on Tough? Like when he was fully there and
he was he was always a little nutty. So
yeah.
I don't think that's the a sign of brain damage. He was always out there, but he is beginning to speak a little slurred.
That, and you could see the damage on him,
which is concerning.
He doesn't even look the same anymore, not even close. And I mean that happens to many fighters. Like look at Bisping, his eyes never gonna be the same.
Even Chris Weidman looks like a completely different person.
Yeah, after Romero kneed him, like Chris Weidman was probably in females' eyes a 9 or a 10, and now he's probably went to a solid 5 real quick. That was mean. That was mean. Maybe we gotta edit that one out. A solid 5.
You check out guys and you rate them like that? Damn, bro.
No, but it really did mess up his eye, and he's also that's never gonna look the same. This is like Bisping says it best. He's like, this isn't really a sport, man. With it, like. We're leaving a part of ourselves in there, Like if you're not all the way in it, you don't need to get in there. And Bisping says that all the time, and I take Bisping's word because he's one of the guys that's been deformed, mostly at the hands of steroid abusers, but he has been deformed in that ring, in the octagon. I called it a damn ring again, octagon.
Yeah, yeah, man, I agree with you, and the time has definitely taken a toll on him. All that fighting. How many people are still around from the era of Tough One?
I think he's the last one.
He's
the
last
of a dying breed.
He's the last one, so it's not a surprise. I don't want to see Diego take any more damage, and if he sticks around for like one more fight, give him like a Dennis Seaver or a BJ Penn. I
might be wrong, but I might be a little bit wrong on this one, but I think Koscheck was the next one. Him and Koscheck were the ones that were lasting the longest from that season.
Yeah, and
holding off retirement.
Koscheck didn't look so hot in Bellator.
He's going down the same road, but even worse.
Time gets the better out of all of us eventually.
Yeah, and the main event, Dema, this turned out. What do you think of the main event?
It was more competitive than a lot of people expected it and gave Artem credit.
It's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I looked at it. I thought it was... I didn't think it was a competitive fight because Cub Swanson won almost every round. But, man, Artem's got a chin. He is really good at taking punches. and he looked dangerous for parts of the fight. I think he won the first round, and that's it. After then, he was getting lit up pretty heavy.
Yeah, fair assessment. But the fact is he was able to go in there and actually win a round where, people thought he was just going to completely get starched, and, he won a lot of respect in a few people's eyes.
Yeah, he was fighting, the number 4 guy. Oh, speaking of number 4, I remember last week I told you guys Dustin Ortiz was number 4. Actually, he was number 9, and Moreno was number 10 in that fight. I don't mean to backtrack. I wanted to
correct yourself.
Clear up a correction from last week. But along the lines of this fight, it was 249-46 scores and a 50-45. So one judge even gave Cub the first round.
I guess he's not real into takedowns or anything.
No, and Lobov talked his way into this fight, and it kind of appeared that way. But to his credit, he looked like a real warrior in there.
Yeah, he hung in there.
I want to see him fight again in the UFC.
Yeah, I think he kind of proved that he belongs in there. Maybe not against
not in the main event. I don't want to see
competition.
I don't want to see him in a main event probably ever again. But like to what some fans were saying prior to this card that he shouldn't even be in the UFC, I say that I disagree with that. Especially when you are able to at least stay in there 5 rounds with Cub Swanson.
Me too.
That says a lot.
You got to give him credit where it's due, and he is getting better with every fight.
Yeah. He probably wouldn't have got this fight if he wasn't Conor's teammate, like you noted last week. But as just a performance, if you're being unbiased, he didn't do much to steal the fight, but he also did okay versus Cub Swanson. He was at least offering up some resistance.
Fair enough.
But, man, Cub's a beast. He looked good, man. My hands were rolling. He did pretty much everything besides knock Artem out. And I think he broke his hand in the fight, which could have had some effect on the power he was throwing with it.
Yep. That's a good point. I do remember he came out and said he broke it a couple of days ago.
Even with a broken hand, he was out grappling Artem, out punching him. He just looked great. I mean, I put more money on Cub Swanson winning than I have on any MMA fight in the last 2 years, and a lot of it had to do with his opponent.
So how did you feel when Artem Lobov won that first round?
That was fine. I knew I really knew Cub had it under control. Even in the first round, it's not like Artem landed anything big. He won it by points, He got the takedown. He landed a couple more punches. He looked good, but to keep that up with 5 rounds with like a legit top 5 guy in the division, I didn't see it happening for the guy who I think is probably number 19, 20 in the division.
Yeah, man. So all in all, this was a really, really good card from Fox, and yeah, man, lots of crazy finishes. Good fights, competitive, and even though the main event was kind of it looked a little weird on paper, it was actually a more competitive fight. So
it was a fun fight,
yeah. So we are going to take a short break, and we'll be back with some news and fight announcements.
Shoot the Ones listeners, thanks for joining us again this week. If you'd like to advertise your product or brand to our fans, we can be reached at shoottheonespodcast@gmail.com. That's shoot the 1S podcast@gmail.com. Please follow us on SoundCloud, subscribe to our show on YouTube, and like and share us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening and your loyal support. And now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Nice to have you back, fans. Next portion of our podcast, we're going to go over some of the recent news. Starting off this week's news, we had some betting allegations in Seoul.
Well, yeah, some talk of a fixed fight. Allegedly, what had happened was somebody approached the Korean fighter and asked him to throw the fight. Is that right?
That is correct. Somebody did ask him to throw the fight. They put a lot of money on it that he did. He's getting the two contestants in this fight were Tae-Hoon Bang, who is the Korean fighter who was bribed to lose per se, and Leo Kuntz, who was his opponent. Interesting aspect to the story. Leo was also interviewed, and he said, "Hey man, I was rocked in that fight. Like he was hitting me hard." So obviously, if it was somehow fixed, Leo wasn't in on the gag. So this was all the Korean fighter.
Yeah, and he's the one that went to the police. I believe he was supposed to have lost the fight. So,
But he won.
but he won the
he won
fight.
by split decision.
So
This
he
happened.
was probably concerned for his safety there, considering the people that do this kind of thing are probably from the underworld or whatever, from the organized crime side of things over there.
Yeah, and betting scandal is nothing new to South Korea. This is a common theme there. But the fact that it's UFC kind of puts it more in the limelight. It's a big deal because it's the UFC.
Yeah, and UFC is, of course, going to deny everything and say we had no idea or took no part, even though they probably know a little bit more. They approached Leo?
Actually, they approached both fighters because this line had crazy movement.
Yeah,
It was a real unordinary. I think it was like a $3 move for the line. Like,
yeah, basically it swung from one way to another one. It shifted completely, which caused there to be concern.
so they
And the
did have a
investigation.
talk, and they just wanted to make sure that both guys' heads were in it and that they were both in the fight to win.
Also, something I heard, the Korean got paid like 90 G's or whatever, half of which he bet on himself, against himself, like to lose.
Oh wow! No, I didn't hear that part of the story. To be, oh god, I'm stuttering like crazy, man.
So there's some shady shit going on here.
Yes, but I was trying to give a timeline before I started stuttering like a madman. This happened in November 2015, so it's not a recent fight. It's coming up now because, like you said, he came to the police, and that's what made a story. Because now he's asking for protection.
Mm. So, yeah, man, it's that's concerning.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Do you think there's any legs to it?
I mean, if the Korean police is officially investigating it, yeah, there's something to that.
Yeah. I don't think it hurts the UFC stock at all because they weren't in on this.
It happened overseas, and also it happened so long it
Good point. That's a
easily
different-
swept under the rug at this
Different
point.
commission, yeah.
Yep.
Good point. Dima, any other interesting news we have this week?
We have a shit ton of fight announcements. A potential, probably the biggest one. Let's talk about. So we know how Anderson's fights, all of them kind of fell through. Going from Kevin Gastelum getting popped for weed and getting removed from that fight. Since then he denied fights with Vitor and Luke Rockhold. And now there's some potential talk about his next opponent being Ovens St. Preux at a catch weight of 190 pounds. What do you think about that?
Odd. A little bit odd. And he's had a carousel of guys that want to fight him, which has been weird. Everybody and their mama is calling out Anderson Silva. I think Rockhold wanted to fight him. He turned that down. Yoel wanted to fight him. He turned that down. There was another one in there. But he's turned down a couple opponents, and he wants OSP at a catchweight? No?
Wouldn't be the most uncharacteristic move of Silva, considering he went up and down before, has fought people at catchweight or light heavyweight divisions prior. So I think this is just Anderson being Anderson and, kind of being who he is and able to pick fights. I think this is an interesting fight for him. He could look good in that fight. I think that's what he picks.
It's a little bit like him versus Derek Brunson, but I think OSP's a little bit taller, different opponent. Well, not too different in his style. Like it's a wrestler, but I think OSP's a little bit more athletic is the word I was looking for.
Do you think he has issues making weight now? What do you think is the motive behind wanting to fight at a heavier weight?
I mean, I think the only motive is if you're looking at OSP, you're not going to ask him to come down. I think Anderson eventually wants fights back at middleweight. I think to our dismay, Anderson wants to fight a little bit longer than we probably expected him to want to fight.
And I think would be more right to do so. He's been more competitive. And
like in his
he hasn't been getting knocked out left and right, as considering some fighters from that era are completely on their way out.
Yes, and to most knowledgeable MMA fans, like he's probably right there at the 5th ranked. But I'm sure in his mind, like he still thinks he's the number 1-2 guy there. He probably thinks he's still a top middleweight, and I think he thinks he's. I mean, he hasn't taken a ton of damage in his career either. The Weidman fights are kind of an anomaly, but he hasn't taken a ton of damage other than that I can remember. Cormier beat him, but he didn't take a ton of damage in that fight.
Yeah, you're right. He's he can absorb shots. Like he rolls with the punches good.
Yeah, and something I've always found fascinating about Anderson is his like face. It doesn't take a ton of damage. Like I remember Chael Sonnen hit him with like a record number of shots. Granted, they weren't super shots, but you get hit with 250 strikes in the face, you should have some kind of bruising. He got up looking like he did at the beginning of the fight after taking 250 Chael Sonnen punches.
Yeah, could be an anomaly sometimes. Yeah.
He doesn't take damage. He's kind of like BJ Penn. BJ Penn was the same way. His face doesn't, even he got beat up by Yair recently, his face looked all right,
Yep.
He's one of those guys, his face doesn't, but then Nate Diaz, Diego Sanchez, Nick Diaz, they get hit in the face once, twice, and they're split open, bleeding all over the place,
I guess once you start taking damage, and I guess Silva never quite got to that point, you start accumulating scar tissue and stuff like that. That's more prone to getting opened up.
And that's why the judges aren't supposed to judge the damage, because different guys damage completely different depending on scar tissue and their prior fights and just the makeup of their skin and body.
Yeah, true that. Other couple of fights. Mike Diakisi is fighting. What's this fella's first name? Close.
Docker.
Dakar Close.
Kker.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with Dakar
trains over
Close.
there with Bendo and those guys.
Interesting.
He had a real impressive first fight. He fought, I forget the guy's name. He fought the guy that came from Dana White's show looking for a fighter, and he annihilated him. I mean, he looked really good, like a good prospect. He was a good collegiate wrestler. He's a good prospect, and Diakisi has been a beast. If I was gonna expect a betting line on this fight, I would expect Diakisi to be a favorite. But don't sleep on Close, man. Close has some skills to also. This should be real fireworks here.
Yeah, and like you said, he comes from a good camp, and this is a definite step up in competition for Mike Diakisi.
Speaking of fun fights, man, there's another one on the same card with Jared Cannonier versus Steve Boss.
Yeah, that's going to be the Ultimate Fighter 25 finale.
Yeah, I hope we're not completely wrong, like with the Talis Leites Sam Alvey prediction on the style of fight, but I expect this to be a stand and bang brawl, man. I don't expect too much groundwork in this fight with Cannonier versus Boss.
Yeah, and both of them kind of heavy-handed guys, so.
Two guys that get it done on the feet, yeah, they're both looking for the knockout, so I don't see how that's not going to be both of these fights are real crowd friendly. I like both fights for the finale there.
I'm real excited about this next one. A bit of a bummer for King Mo, who suffered an injury, now being replaced by Phil Davis. in this fight against Ryan Bader.
Yeah, it's weird. What I find a little bit weird about this is typically like if you're just doing like a number one contender fight like King Mo had with Bader, and the guy comes out injured, the champ's not like, "Ooh, I want to take him on. Let me step in there and take on the challenger's fight." But this is an interesting fight nevertheless because they have history. They fought in the UFC. It was a snooze fest. It was one of the worst fights you'll ever see. But they have fought. They have that history. And if I'm not mistaken, Bader got the better of the champ, Phil Davis. He won that fight.
You might be right. This is a interesting dynamic. They both developed their hands, more so Bader than Phil Davis. I guess what I want to say is they're different fighters at this point.
I agree.
Also, fighting under Bellator, this won't be the main card. This is gonna headline the spike portion of things. So as far as placement, they're not bumping off Chandler off of down.
Oh, this is going on the Chael Sonnen card versus Vanderlei and the Fedor versus Mitchell card?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
So,
neat. And then that's going to be a sweet card, man.
This is going to be a really solid addition to, what already is a stacked Bellator event.
Best Bellator card of all time, man. They got Lima versus, who was that? The guy Lima's facing? Oh, Lorenz Larkin also on that card.
Yeah.
God, I'm forgetting names. I forgot that Steven Von Flew was the one earlier.
I mean, sometimes slip with the name.
Jason. Fuck, I fucked it up again. It was Jason Von Flew. I was to go, where the fuck I get Steven? It's getting late.
It's all good, man.
But no, that's a good fight for Bellator, Dema.
Yeah, man. Good event. Also, good event for Bellator is going to be the London card. That one has some interesting fights coming up, and
it's on the 19th, right?
Yeah, we're looking forward to reviewing that.
Yeah,
Rory McDonald is going to fight. Paul Daly, couple of.
We're about to hit a little bit of a slow time in MMA, but we jump right back in there on the 13th with UFC 211, which. Yeah, that's a heck of a card. And then Bellator's coming with their strong cards coming up here soon, too, man. So it's going to be a good month here in May.
Hell yeah. Next fight, we have Nikita Krylov, who was unfortunately let go by the UFC. He is going to be facing off against Emmanuel Newton at Eurasian Fight Night.
Eurasian Fight Night. That's the group that's been making noise there in I guess
the Caucasus.
Yeah, where Khabib's from.
Yeah. Dagestan, Chechnya.
Yeah, the Dagestan that teamed up with M1 Global, that league.
No, that's ACB teamed up with Global.
Birkut. Yeah, that's Birkut.
These guys.
What's EFN
then? EFN is more. They do more stuff in Dagestan and Chechnya, whereas ACB just goes all over like Western.
They must
Russia.
have decent money to be able to pick up Emmanuel Newton, who had a pretty decent Bellator run, and Nikita Krylov, who was arguably still top 10 when UFC let him go, or didn't choose to resign him would be the correct wording.
Yeah, and I think I've said this on Reddit. I think Nikita's going to be back after getting a couple of wins outside of UFC.
Yeah, and a win over Emmanuel Newton definitely moves him in the right direction. So, good call, Dema. That's a good fight.
Yeah, man.
What next? We got the Bear Jew?
Yeah, 3 fights announced for the Glasgow card. First, as you said, the Bear Jew is going to be Paul Craig is fighting Khalil Roundtree.
Coming off a pretty rough loss to Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro is a tough motherfucker, though, man. I got high hopes for Tyson.
And Khalil Roundtree is coming off of a pretty impressive win. Like, he need somebody pretty good and knocked him out, if I remember correctly.
I think he fought another knockout fighter, a guy with a lot of strength in that guy's hometown and just annihilated him with the strikes. Yeah, it was Khalil's best performance I've seen by him.
And I remember this because I talked some shit about Khalil.
We both did.
Yeah, and he came out and shut me up by knocking somebody out with a sweet knee. So.
Yeah, he had one of the best knockouts of that night. So it's a guy coming off a loss versus a guy coming off of a win.
The other two fights, real quick. Jack Marshman versus Ryan James.
Mhm.
Also, Mark Godbeer versus Justin Wills.
Oh, interesting. They're gonna give Justin Wills another chance. He was the guy that failed. We talked about shoot the ones you might have forgot, but he failed. He got a short notice fight in the UFC heavyweight. He failed to make heavyweight weight, and because it was dangerous for him to attempt it, the commission called it off.
Mm.
So no fight happened.
It's reasonable. Give him another chance. He didn't have the time to make the weight.
I hear he's a big prospect. What is Eugene Robinson is another one of the podcast hosts. I've heard him talk about actually doing jiu-jitsu with Justin Willis. He says he's one of the strongest guys that he's done jiu-jitsu against. So that says something.
Right on.
And Godbeer, he's touted for his striking. He's a striker. He won his last fight, but he hasn't been overly impressive in the UFC. This is an interesting fight. I think if Justin Willis lives up to expectations, he should beat Godbeer with wrestling and probably top game jiu-jitsu. Jack Marshman, Ryan James is a real good fight. James is coming off a loss, and Marshman, I believe, is also coming off of a knockout loss to, what is that? Striker Thiago Santos. It's Santos. Yep, Thiago. He lost to Thiago Santos, but won his UFC debut against Magnus Sittenblad. This is a good fight, man. I don't know who to call yet in this one. If I had to lean towards one Dema, I would say Jack.
Man, your MMA memory is a lot better than mine. You're able to just recall all that without the phone.
Yeah, no notes on these. I think they're good fights. They're lesser known guys, but they're all trying to make a name for themselves. I'm excited about those as well.
Right on. We have one more fight announcement. This came just recently. Gian Vellante and Pat Cummins.
Yeah, John was Shogun's last win, and Pat Cummins coming off that real impressive performance over Jan Blachowicz, where he got dominated in the first round, knocked down 4 times, and came back and won the next 2 rounds, which was really hella impressive in my eyes. For a guy I didn't have a ton of respect for his game, but starting to kind of respect his grind a little bit.
Yeah, right on. I think it's a good competitive fight. Good for Gian coming off of a loss to Shogun.
Yeah.
Yep, the rain is back.
That rain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. If Gian, I think Gian has the skills to beat Cummins, but if he fights like he did versus Shogun, it's gonna be Cummins all day. So that's a hard one to call as well, because it's really what Gian shows up, and you never know with him.
Right on. That's a fair assessment. One more thing before we hit the outro. World Series of Fighting is no longer World Series of Fighting. Starting 2018, they are going to be the Professional Fight League, PFL.
Yeah, I believe on our first episode of Shoot the Ones, we predicted that World Series of Fighting wouldn't be around much. This was back when they were canceling cards, Dema. And this news isn't shocking to me. It's a weird name change because I thought they're pretty unsuccessful over there at World Series of Fighting. If we're being fair, they did have a handful of solid guys like Gaethje, Marlon, Branch, but they've all recently been let go,
branched out.
But the one thing that was okay was the name, and they're just like, what the heck are they calling it now?
The PFL, Professional Fight League.
Yeah, which I think there's already been one. There was a international fight. There's been a lot of fight league. The IFL, it was the IFL. So they just changed one name. It's not.
They went from not a very impressive name to
their marketing team
to another not so impressive.
Their marketing team was like sit around and stick pencils in their nose and stuff, man. But
Damn.
you really wonder about them. But like, I'm glad that these guys are getting picked up by the UFC. All three of the top guys, and they're gonna be. I can't say that they're gonna be champs, but they're gonna be in there in the top 10. Man, they're gonna be upsetting some guys, and they're gonna be losing to some guys, I imagine.
Yep, Justin Gaethje
That's the one I'm most excited
was
for.
announced on Twitter that officially he is going to be going to UFC.
I love his style, man. Kill or be killed, and he hasn't been killed yet.
So that's probably the most exciting acquisition coming out of former World Series of Fighting.
Yeah, man. They were paying him like crazy money there at World Series of Fighting. So it's interesting. I kind of want to see what his contract situation is like with UFC. I'm sure he's probably getting paid a handsome amount over there as well. But man, he's an exciting brawler. I think Dave Branch might be the most skilled of the three coming over, but man, is the most exciting by far Justin Gaethje. And the scary thing about Gaethje is he's a wrestler, but he wants to strike with you.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about it in prior episodes about him. And
yeah, he's not one-dimensional.
Yeah, but it's like Johnny Hendricks used to be when he knocked out Fitch and was a scary guy, beating up GSP for a couple rounds.
Yeah, alleged pre-USADA Hendricks.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of what Gaethje reminds me of. Like, he uses the wrestling to not get wrestled. That's what he uses, his good wrestling.
Yeah, that's sprawl and brawl tactic. Gotcha.
Sweet.
Good stand-up?
Who?
Gaethje.
Gaethje?
Excellent
power.
I've only watched like one.
Excellent power.
I'm not very familiar with him.
He's hittable. I would recommend watching his last fight with Palomino and his fight with Brian Foster. I mean, he goes in there like to, one, entertain, and two, kill or be killed. That's his style. And he's good at wrestling enough to where you're not going to wrestle him.
Yeah,
so it's going to be his style of standing and banging and seeing whose power lives up to the test. And so far, he's got a lot of power. Palomino, who also had a lot of power, rocked him in that fight. But he came back.
Who do you think would be a good opponent to welcome him to the big leagues?
Oh, remind me what weight class he's at. Is that 170 or 155?
I'll have to look it up.
I think it's 155.
But let's say lightweight.
He's got a ton.
That's the stacked division.
I would like to see him versus Ally Quinta, actually. That would be a fun fight.
Okay.
But there's so many at 155. Hell, I'd like to see him versus Tony Ferguson. But that fight's not going to happen. Right off bat, he's got to win one or two. I don't think the World Series of Fighting championship belt is as respected coming over. Like, I think he's still 2-3 fights away from the championship as well.
Yeah, needless to say, that's why I said the big leagues.
But like Marlon, what is Marlon Moraes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, just like Marlon Moraes, he got a big fight. His first fight, they already announced him versus a Sunsao. So I expect Gaethje to get somebody on that level, on the Sunsao level, which Sunsao's what, 4th or 5th in the division still, or maybe a little bit lower than that.
Yeah, they don't hesitate to kind of throw him in there and test. Brunson got a tough.
Sunsao's coming off a win against Aljamain Sterling, who was just impressive as hell the other week.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, man, I'm excited to see these guys from World Series of Fighting come over to the UFC. I think that they belong with the A-League guys.
For sure. It's going to be exciting to see how they stack up.
Yeah. Man, we did a sweet show considering we showed up here not feeling fantastic. I feel good about it, man. We ended up doing all right. What you say?
I think the key to success is just do it, man. Whatever it is, you're not feeling well, fucking suck it up and do it. There's not much else to say.
At this point, we also have a feeling of somewhat responsibility, like people kind of want to hear our opinion on what happened, and we enjoy bringing that art to you guys.
Yeah, and consistency is key. Once with this episode, once we got the ball rolling, everything.
It just goes back to shooting the shit about MMA.
Yeah, and which is fun. We forget about feeling shitty or whatever else we had going on. So,
Well, we do appreciate you joining us. You can catch us on iTunes, Stitcher, MMApodcast.com, SoundCloud. Am I missing any, Dema?
and also YouTube.
YouTube. Yes.
Yeah, guys. We're excited to next week we're going to do a big preview show for the 211. That's going to be a huge card. That's so stacked, and I'm already geeking out about it. Also, like we mentioned,
best card in a while.
Yeah, also, like we mentioned before, Bellator is going to be coming up with their London card, and they're going to have a big Madison Square Garden show coming up soon, too.
It's going to be big.
So, yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. So, thanks for joining us again this week, and, catch us on all the aforementioned platforms, like Genya said, and thanks for shooting the ones with us.
Yeah, we appreciate all the feedback and stuff that we're receiving. Also, we've just like we talked about on prior shows, man. The support has been great.
We're gonna have Ricky Rainey join us in the next.
Hopefully, the next episode.
Couple.
But
episodes.
If not, the next one, we're gonna work with his schedule a little bit. But we agreed with the next one is what I asked him. But it might be the one after, just depending on his schedule. Because he does a lot. Also, I mean, he trains, he teaches.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna figure it out. So look forward to that. So thanks for shooting the ones with us this week. Dema and Genya out.